So I'm very pleased to introduce to you our First Lady of Ohio, Frances Strickland, and we're very pleased to have her here today.
All right.
Is that better? Is that better?
What a terrific turnout. Thank you all. I don't know how much notice they gave you all to put this together. Most people only get like 2 or 3 days at the most. And I just continue to appreciate those of you that put down whatever you're doing and you come in and give us a chance to be with you again, because these are the times where we've got to come together in a common direction. I know over the last 4 years, or 3.5, we've been working together about policies and directions of the state, and we haven't always agreed, and neither should we, because we want to make good decisions. So we need to have honest debate and take in all the different viewpoints. And one thing I like about Democrats is we don't mind speaking up and saying what we think about things, which is really helpful. Right, Debbie?
Right.
And I'm also glad to be with so many neat elected officials here today. And I hope Bill O'Neill gets here, because it's really great that he's running for Congress, and we need to hear from him again. But I wanted to tell you that it's a lot of fun to stand before you when the polls have come like this. If I'd had to come about 2 weeks ago, I would have probably been trying to explain what was happening and what was going on. But Kenny, were you the one telling me when we came in that we were up now, or?
We're up about 1.5 to 2%.
So, you all know who Kenny is back there, right? He's been around. Kenny Carano. You're a county commissioner.
No, I was a state rep, but I'm officially on vacation today because I work for the boss.
Okay, I couldn't. Sometimes I'm like the old woman in the shoe now. I'm trying to keep up with everybody, and if I know their name, I think that's great, and I can put it with the face. That's great. But then keeping what all they're doing straight is not as easy for me. But I wanted to ask you: was that a new poll that came out today, or is it?
It was today. Yesterday, when we went to sleep, everything was even. There was a new poll this morning, and I don't even have the name of which it was. But.
Okay. Well, I know over a 24-hour period, I heard 4 new polls. 2 of them had us down 2. 2 of them had us down 1, and then I think the New York Times one was saying that we were actually up 2.5 points among registered voters, but we were down 1 among likely voters. So I was trying to get it straight whether you had yet a new one, or if it was that one that you were talking about. But anyway.
I always thought the candidates didn't even look at polls.
Well, I can tell you for a period of time I wasn't, because I felt like they were really not reflecting what we were feeling when we were out. So that would have been 2 weeks ago. That's what I would have been talking to you about, is don't pay any attention to the polls, because you can tell when the tide's turned against you. And in the way people treat you, we were in parades. And that's where you really get it. You know, they'll do like this, or they'll yell out the opponent's name, or I wouldn't vote for him, and we just weren't getting that kind of treatment. And so it began to look like they were just concerned and more worried and didn't know what to think as much. And that's when it became kind of clear to us that Ted was running against the economy and not against another human being. And I think with the debates, and then with putting the ads on, the more recent ads that Ted has, people are beginning to now see the comparison with the opponent or the other view, and the differences are very stark and very different. So everything closed fast. But part of the problem was we made the decision as a campaign that we wanted to be sure that we had the resources to be before the people and on the TVs at the time when people were starting to pay attention, which was from Labor Day on. Traditionally, that's when it's been. So for about 6 weeks, Ted was being pounded on and was not responding. And that's what made the polls really go down. It would have been almost unheard of if that hadn't happened. But once he got back on and with the ads, it closed very rapidly. And now with the story, I think when you look at the story of this administration and what it's done, then people are feeling much better about, I think they were just confused for a while and they had to be reminded. But there are three things I like to think about in what Ted's been doing as governor. One, and I put this first, is he's tried to keep the people involved and stay close to the people. That means he's out on the road a lot. I'm out on the road a lot as the chair of the Family and Children First Council. I took that role so I could stay close to the social service side so we could know what was happening with the families at the local level. Too often when you're at the state level, you deal in statistics and you hear there's this percent of poverty and this amount of substance abuse and that kind of thing, but you don't see the faces that go with them and you don't hear the urgency of the stories. So it's a little bit harder to go out and face those things knowing you don't have, as Peggy or Debbie was saying, overnight solutions. You have to count on a system that works, a system that tries to provide opportunities and equal opportunities for all. And when Ted was in Congress, I remember it was kind of with a quiet pleasure if we found out somebody, a constituent had a problem and his office could deal with it. But now what you want is a system that deals with it. I mean, it's a big state and you want to know that your agencies are carrying out the work as the funds were intended and as the people need for it to be. So as the chair of the Family Children First Council, I was able to go out and to try to work more directly. And that, she was also talking about, no, not her, our auditor back there, who was talking about having to stay within the laws and that he was trying to get some changed. And that's the other thing that we're trying to do when we work with the local people. You know, because you're in the world of action, what's working and what isn't, and you can say, how come you have this law or how come you do it this way? Because if you didn't have that, we could do so much better. And so we've been systematically trying to remove those things that maybe were put into place a long time ago, and whatever was going on then was no longer a problem, and that regulation was no longer needed. So it's been pretty exciting to watch this administration get rid of a lot of the regulations and things that were in the way. And but that all happened because of trying to stay close to the people. I remember in 2006 when we were looking at the various focus group comments, what they wanted more than anything then was a politician or leader they could trust and that would keep the people as in the forefront all the time of what they were doing. So that's been the thing that we've tried to remember is to feel that yearning that people have for someone they could trust. And that's why that cannot happen unless you stay close to the people. The second thing is then he has to show that he's been effective as a leader. And I think the fact that he's been able to have a budget and that he's been able to get the policies for funding education changed. I mean, the formula now will meet the constitutional requirements for an equitable funding, but the thing is it has to be phased in because the financial situation doesn't allow it to occur overnight, and we have people like Debbie to thank for the fact that happened. This whole education reform plan is both equity and adequacy. And if you'll remember, there's another example. Ted had his regional meetings where he went around twice about education. The first time to talk about the evidence-based approach and get your opinions on what you thought made for a good education program. He came back around again then trying to explain the funding part of it. And then out of that formed this education reform plan, and that got passed and was rated then by the National Education Company or Association as the most bold and forward-thinking education reform plan in the whole United States. So we were really proud of that. And then in terms of the economy, you know, much of this is understanding that we have to go to a new way of doing things in new ways, new businesses and new companies, because much of what we've been depending on is being replaced by robots, or it's been outsourced for people trying to figure out how to do things with less. So he said in his campaign in 2006 that he felt that the next economy was going to be, the next industry would be based on energy. And he has systematically, if you will follow his efforts, systematically worked on energy as the next industry. So we are moving up rapidly in wind turbines. I think we'll be having, with the turbines on Lake Erie, we will be the first in the country to do that. Our solar world is really advancing very rapidly, and if we're not number one now in the country with solar, we will soon be. And that's why Business Magazine, Energy Business Magazine, put gave him an award for being the most forward-thinking governor in the field of energy. So why are these things important? And that's the third point, is that it positions Ohio to be a leader and not just catching up. You know, it can talk about finding out what people want and then offer it to them so they'll buy it. But really, to be a leader in the country, you've got to think about what people are going to need before they know they're going to need it, and move to put that in place. And that's what this administration has been doing, and been doing very effectively. So I'm really pleased. I was telling Ted the other night, I said, you know, you look at anything that objectively that says what you need to do to have a good economy, and it talks about an education system that's forward-thinking, that prepares people for the future. It talks about a good healthcare system, because you've got to have a healthy populace. It talks about investing in the things that you're going to need for the future and lay the foundation for those. And I was saying, he really had just systematically been working on all of the right things. Then he said, and wouldn't it be awful for somebody else to get credit for that rather than this administration? And when people ask me, well, then what's he going to do in the next term? It's really, what he's done is put together a foundation, and if you're in the carpentry world, you know, he's put up the frame, but now we have to color it in or build it in. And what's at stake then is if the opponent gets in, they're going to take those things down. And so it's really hard when you've been laying a foundation to say you're going to do new and bold things, when what you've just done was bold, and you're trying to hang on to it till it takes the kind of root that other people see the way to go with it. I was just telling people that it's like in the military, they say the most dangerous time is not when you're taking the hill or you're seizing the bunker or the city. It is after it's over and you're celebrating, and the opponent or the enemy is over there regrouping, ready to recharge and try to take it all back or undo what you've done. Well, this is kind of where we are in the country. With education, I see energy trying to undo what we've done, accomplished in education here, and look at the healthcare thing. DeWine says if he's Attorney General, he's going to make Ohio one of the 20, or join the other 20 states that want to repeal what we just accomplished after years and years and years in healthcare reform. So we have to work twice as hard to hold on to what we have as we had to work to get it to start with. So just think about how noble your work is. And those of you that are willing to come in and willing to get on the telephone and call and stand up for this, these are the education reform. Is, I don't know how many years we've tried to make education funding constitutional, and healthcare, we know how long. So we've gotten major efforts and advancement. Now we just have to hold on to it. So thank you for the part in getting us there to start with, but thank you for what you're going to do to hold on to it.